Nick, these tight end deals reset the market. What's your take on these big deals?
My take is the tight end market had been one giant market inefficiency ready to be corrected, and it kind of was. Prior to these deals, the best tight ends in football were making Jamison Crowder money, which is lunacy. Now the best tight ends in football are making Jarvis Landry, Allen Robinson money, which is still a bargain. A weird thing happened with the tight end market. Gronk set the market around $9 million almost more than a half decade ago, and then it just stayed there. It didn't grow with the cap. It didn't grow with the salaries of other players. And now you have the two best tight ends in football by a wide margin totally reset the market. But when you look at the fact that what the best guards in football make, let alone what the best wide receivers in football make, I would argue, Greg, that $15 million a year for Kittle, who is a great offensive lineman and a very good receiver, and $14 million a year for Kelce, who's a decent offensive lineman and a spectacular receiver, is a hell of a bargain. And so I think both these teams did very well to lock up two of the three best players on their team. In the Niners' case, maybe the very best player on their entire team, Greg.
You know, I agree, Nick. I think the tight end market has always been one that's been pretty strange with the numbers that you just mentioned. But with these two guys in particular, it had to be done. When you look at George Kittle, he is the best player on that 49er roster. If you remove him from that team, they don't do, and they're not where they were last year in the Super Bowl, potentially having the opportunity to get there again because of the kind of player he is. I remember playing a game back in the day, NCAA football, and it had game breakers. That is what these two young men are. They are straight up game breakers. George Kittle, 2 years in a row, over 1,000 yards. Travis Kelce going on his fourth or fifth year of 1,000 yards receiving. Like, these aren't just tight ends. They are flat-out playmakers. You can split them out. They change the game. They make the game so much easier for quarterbacks, even as great as Patrick Mahomes, and specifically Jimmy Garoppolo, giving him a safety valve and a safety target with a catch radius as large as George Kittle's. And you mentioned the blocking. They both do their part when it comes to the run game, specifically George Kittle. Well worth it. I think this is something that needed to be done, and I'm excited for these two young men.
Hey, we wanted to throw up a graphic. This makes your point. Look at this. 170 receptions, 2,400 yards, and 10 TDs. Julio's making 22. Michael Thomas making 19. DeAndre's making 16. Nick, this is what you're saying. George Kittle's making 15. Yep. Kelce's making 14. This is courtesy of our researcher, Dusty, who should have been an agent. This looks good. What do you think?
And DeAndre, by the way, one of the reasons DeAndre's wearing that uniform instead of the Texans uniform, aside from the general malfeasance that goes on in the front office with the Houston Texans, is because he wanted a raise. Because for his level of production, $16 million a year wasn't good enough. Yeah. And so I understand guys in the NFL, Greg, get paid by position. But when tight ends were being paid like a, solid number two, and now they're being paid like the bottom of the market number one receiver, it just seems like this is money very, very well spent compared to the other way to spend cap dollars. And you mentioned it. It's always been an odd market. I just feel like it's not like tight ends being great receivers is a totally new phenomenon. I grew up a Kansas City Chiefs fan. You could make the argument in the late 90s, early 2000s, a top three receiver in the NFL was Tony Gonzalez. And so it just feels to me like there's been some static in the tight end market even this offseason. Austin Hooper, it was a true free agent and got $10 million a year. The market to me hasn't made sense. And even with these record-setting deals, it feels like they're bargains, at least in my mind, Wilds.
You know, one thing I was happy to see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Greg.
No, I was going to just add to that. I think a part of that is because we do see teams and organizations and the market being set by position, which I understand the rationale behind that, to have a benchmark, to have kind of a template. But when you have players that have earned to make the amount of money that some of these players are making, specifically, we're talking to these two tight ends, and you put up that stat in that graphic, they should be making what they have earned. And their play has earned more than $15 and $14 million a year.
Hey, you know, I'm out here like a peregrine falcon on social media, Nick, making sure that the Chiefs are not tweeting anything about dynasties, and I didn't see anything. Just Patrick Mahomes tweeted 6 more years. He was happy, but no dynasty talk. But the producers, of course, like to get me upset and say, "Wow, let's make sure you ask Nick about you know, the upcoming dynasty." I said, "Guys, Patriots have a dynasty. We got Cam Newton." They say they don't care. So go ahead, talk your dynasty talk.
Well, I mean, there's your 7 best players on the team. They're all contracted for at least the next 2 years. You can add to that, by the way, I don't even have on there some of their young draft picks like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be their starting running back. They got him for the next 5. McCole Hardman, they've got him for the next 3. Greg, we went into this offseason with the Chiefs having $177 of cap space. Not $177,000, $177. And going into this offseason, here's what I thought would happen. I thought they would have to cut Sammy Watkins. I thought they would have to trade Chris Jones. And I thought Travis Kelce, with 2 years left on an undermarket deal, was going to be asked to play at least one more season at a very discounted rate before they tried to find a way to pay him. Instead, they kept Watkins. They re-signed Mahomes for a decade. They gave Chris Jones 4 new years. And they prematurely, but in a good way, extended Kelce for another 4. Greg, I understand, especially because you played on a team that won a Super Bowl, then went 15-1, looked like a dynasty in the making, and unfortunately never got back to another Super Bowl, maybe because they didn't lock up Greg Jennings like we did Travis Kelce, maybe because they let him walk to Minnesota. Maybe that was the whole key to the whole thing. But regardless, I understand people think that I might be throwing around the dynasty term a little too loosely. But Greg, if you were following the path to build one, these would be the steps you're walking in locking up all the pieces of your core for the next 3 to 5 years, right?
No question. When I look at the Kansas City Chiefs and what Brett Veach has been able to do with locking up these guys and locking them up early, and I think the key to their success of being able to do it is the environment, the culture that they've created. These guys love Andy Reid. They want to be there. They want to be a part of something special. And they all know that they have an opportunity to do so. What the management has done, though, is they've done their part by saying, you know what? We know we have something special. We want to continue to pay you guys. We're going to make it work. And every team in the National Football League can make things work if they so choose to. And the Kansas City Chiefs have found a way to make it work. Whether you sign a guy or extend the guy early, like they just showed us with Travis Kelce, whether you extend or you give your quarterback the highest paid contract in almost sports history, basically, these are the things that you have to do to make sure your players know that we're not going to try to lowball you. We're going to give you what you deserve. But we're also going to try to make sure we can hold on to a lot of these other assets that make us so special as a core and as an organization.
And I think there's 2 very important quick points to add. One is locking Mahomes up for 3 presidential terms and Mahomes making it clear to the world and his teammates, I didn't squeeze every last dollar out of the team, to me made it easier for them to go to Chris Jones and Travis Kelce and say, you probably could get a little more, but you know it's not only you're going to be with Andy Reid, you're going to be on a team that's quarterbacked by Mahomes, but it also, if I were a fan of any team in the league, like I mentioned the Texans with DeAndre, that cries poverty, about not paying their best players. The Chiefs entered this offseason with less money in cap space than Greg Jennings has in his pocket right now. And they locked up all pro after all pro after all pro. If you want to make it work, Wilds, you can make it work as management if you really want to keep a team together.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.